Hi, everybody. I'm Eric Stites with Franchise Business Review. I founded the company in 2005, and I'm joined here today with our president, Michelle Rowan. Michelle, welcome.
Thank you.
So we wanted to take 30 minutes to share a few thoughts with you today about turning dissatisfied franchise into what we call brand champions. Now, we've been researching franchisee satisfaction for about 12 years and have worked with over 1,000 brands. And, you know, it's great to have happy franchisees. I think I think life's a lot easier for everybody when franchisees are happy. But the primary reason that we study franchisee satisfaction and the primary reason that you should be really engaged in what the importance of franchisee satisfaction has to do with the impact on franchise performance. And when we look at the top quartile of franchise brands that we've surveyed and studied specifically those with the highest franchisee satisfaction and look at them in their performance compared to those in the bottom quartile, the performance gap is really staggering. You know, whether you're looking at unit growth, royalty revenue, franchisee turnover, franchisee income, I mean, the numbers are just astonishing. And so, again, when we talk about franchisee satisfaction, it's much more than just having a bunch of happy franchisees. It's about having a bunch of happy and extremely well-performing franchisees, and I think the evidence is very strong as to why you want strong satisfaction. And so, Michelle, I want to turn it over to you and have you kind of walk through how we get started with this.
Fantastic. Good. Yes. So the other part too is I think we talk a lot with the development side of teams of companies we work with too, but you can't sell franchises if your franchisees aren't happy and validating well. So it's important to understand where your system's at. So I think the obvious part of starting with this webinar is that the first step in improving franchisee satisfaction is by surveying your franchisees to understand where things are at. Survey is by far the best way to identify any cracks that are in your system and why they're feeling dissatisfied from your brand or with your brand. So whether you do an internal survey, whether you work with us at Franchise Business Review or have another survey tool, I think the first critical step is not just getting the survey out there for kind of checking that box and saying you did it, but really it's about asking the right questions on the survey that you can use that data to make improvements from what you get back. So whether you surveyed because you knew that the improvements were needed and or if you were surprised by getting the survey out and coming back and seeing that you had low scores, this is an opportunity and we're assuming you're here because you have some areas that you know about or that you're concerned. Doing the survey is the first piece of understanding that. So some of the right questions to ask. Demographics can be used on your survey to really let you break out your system. So if you include things like I have up here a tenure question, so you can understand as a whole system how are people responding if they're satisfied with the brand, but then you want to look at the groups of franchisees within your system. The top, the older, or at the bottom, and the idea is, are your newer franchisees happier? They should be. You know, the life cycle of a franchisee starts with them being very happy and leaning on you for support, but you want to make sure that that satisfaction stays up as you're going through the life cycle with the franchisee. So trending information. So asking the same questions year over year. So you can understand if you're moving the needle. If the franchisees rated that they were unhappy with something last year, you want to measure your progress over the last year so that you can share that back with them and understand, are you improving either what they're expecting from you or making a change to what they're looking for from you as a franchisor and as a support. So the other piece that we have here too is that when you look at benchmarking information, it's important to look not just at your brand, but also too, how do you compare to other franchise systems that you might be being shopped around? If candidates are looking at both brands, you want to know where your strengths are, or where other people, other systems are doing much better than you and providing a higher level of service. So those are just some things to consider as you shape your survey and figure out what questions that you want to ask. Some other ones that we use on our survey include the number of stores or units that the franchisees own, so you can look at your single unit franchisees and your multi-unit franchisees. You could also break it up by the geography or the regions that you have within your system. Or if you want to take a look at your top quartile performers, so understanding are the people that are bringing the most revenue into your system happier or less satisfied than those that are in the middle or in the bottom quartile. So those are just some things to consider as you build out your survey. So now we're going to get into the actual 5 tips that we promised on the webinar, assuming that you have your data, and go through that information. So tip 1 is show the full Monty. So yes, we're saying in this way that share it all. It's reading through your results when you get the survey information back from your franchisees can be tough, and it can make you feel like your franchisees don't like you personally, or your first instinct may be to take this report and hide it and not think about it or look at it until you're ready to ask the questions again down the road and you think things are better. So some systems too that we work with, their impulse is to only share the positive pieces that they're getting or where they really did well from the franchisee's perspective. And we really will caution you and say, don't do that. The best way that you can use this information is to understand that sharing the results with your team and your franchisees is the first step in understanding that you guys are sharing everything. Being transparent, the more you share is really going to come out and do more for you just by asking those questions and sharing that data back without us addressing any of the issues, just doing that step by sharing that. So point out your highs and your low scores, and sharing the good and the bad lets the franchisees know that you are aware of where they need to make the focus this next year, and that you're focused on improving it so that you can deliver a better experience for them. Some ways to share it. So let's talk about, how you can share the good and the bad. Having an open conference call where the franchisees can see the data that you've got to ask questions. If you're willing to be open in that, you can do it in a webinar and have them type in questions, or depending on the size of your system, just allow them to ask questions as you go through it. Doing it in person at your annual conference or regional meetings is a great way to kind of own the data that you're getting back. Or start with your FAC, and they can be a huge asset to you. So if you review the results with the FAC, let them help you communicate the results out to the franchisees and help position that. So it's just one way to use the FAC to allow them to help you get that information out of what's going to be done with this. And they usually will take that information better from peers than they will from the corporate team. So, and especially if they feel like the corporate team is disengaged or is not listening to them, doing something in conjunction with the FAC does show more of a partnership approach to doing the survey. And then I will say too, the next time you do a survey, it's a great idea to involve your FAC and let them give you ideas on questions to ask. Another way to show that you are involving them and allowing them to get feedback on areas that might be important for them. And if you're already getting the survey out to all the franchisees, why not allow them to add a little bit more to it? So that's tip 1, is really sharing the data back that you collect. And Eric, I'm going to toss it back over to you to share tip 2.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. As Michelle mentioned, I mean, tip 2 here is owning your shortcomings. And the worst thing you can do after doing a survey with your franchisees is to stick it in the drawer somewhere and wait till next year or some other time in the future. Nobody's perfect, and I can tell you that more than 2/3 of the companies that we work with aren't 100% happy with their survey results. Many are not happy at all with their survey results. And it's easy to kind of assign blame and you know, kind of get negative, and that's absolutely not what you want to do. You want to focus on strengthening the relationship with your franchisees and working together. And Michelle will share a number of tips in upcoming slides on where you can really make some headway on working together. But what's important is when you're looking at your survey results is to understand, you know, you can't fix everything immediately. And while you have a great team at corporate with many different departments who can do many different things, your franchisees can only handle so much at one time. So it's really important to focus in on, you know, 3 to 5 priorities that you can really show some movement on, something that's important to your franchisees. Obviously, you know, you can tell from your survey results where their priorities are. They don't necessarily align with all your corporate priorities. It's important to look at, you know, where their priorities lie as well as where your corporate priorities lie and find that middle ground. Choose, you know, like I said, 3 to 5 manageable tasks that can get done and that you can show some headway and you know, really get those completed in a fairly short amount of time. There's going to be, you know, some big projects that take over a year that you're not going to get completed. Those you want to break down into smaller tasks, make sure that franchisees feel that, you know, they understand what those kind of milestones are along the way. Certain things that, certain examples of that include a system remodel, rebranding, maybe rolling out a new technology platform or a POS system, things that typically take longer to happen. And again, you just break those up into more manageable milestones and just keep communicating to franchisees what's happening, where you are in the process, and how it's going to impact them. And what's really important here with the survey is, you know, obviously you're going to encourage your franchisees to give you as much feedback all along the way as you can, but just keep reminding them that all these initiatives that you're working on are coming as a result of their feedback. So every initiative that you're working on, they just get that constant reminder, hey, my franchisor is listening to me, they understand what our needs are, and we're moving forward. And that just helps, you know, one, it'll help participation next time when you do a survey. It's all tied back to their feedback. You know, what we really want to talk next about is aligning franchisees' expectations, or in many cases, you're realigning expectations with franchisees that had, you know, maybe false expectations either coming in or somewhere lost their expectations along the way. And what's really important here is what I call realistic leadership. It's important to communicate the vision of your brand, and that vision needs to be strongly rooted in reality. You know, if you're pushing sunshine and rainbows, I know it's a kind of a silly term, but, you know, if franchisees are just hearing about sunshine and rainbows all day, and they're, you know, in the thick of it, you know, really challenged in their business, you're going to lose them. So it's critical for you to be empathetic, and most importantly for your staff to be empathetic of your franchisees and truly understand the real challenges that they're facing every day. Certainly get out of your cubes at corporate and go visit franchisees, have everybody on staff get out and spend time in the trenches servicing customers and understand what that franchisee experience is really like. We all love our brands as part of being part of a franchisor organization, you're part of an entrepreneurial organization, we tend to be very optimistic and many times overly optimistic. And this can really lead to some real challenges. We have this, what we call an optimism gap between franchisors and franchisees. And when we survey franchisors and ask them about what their business outlook looks like for the next year or two, and ask the same question to franchisees, we see a fairly significant gap between those responses. Franchisees tend to be much less optimistic about where their business is going. And again, they're in the trenches every day. They're facing all these challenges. And you know, when you're at the corporate office and you're drinking the Kool-Aid and you're really excited about the new programs and all this new great stuff that the brand is working on, that's great, but you just got to have to temper that a little bit when dealing with franchisees. And you can just imagine, you know, take a young marketing manager who's excited about a new marketing program he or she just helped design, calling a franchisee who might be, you know, sweating out making payroll this week, and how that conversation is going to go. So again, just keep that in mind and constantly train your staff to be empathetic to the franchisee's position. One of the things that we have is what we call a vision planning ebook, and we'll make sure everybody gets that today. There is a handout section as part of the GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar where you can download that ebook, and we'll also send you a reminder in the email afterwards. But you have to remember as a franchisor, whether you work for the franchisor or whether you're the CEO, that your business, your brand, as great as it is simply just a vehicle for your franchisees to achieve their personal goals. And those personal goals that they have is what's going to drive their business goals and your business goals. And connecting those dots are really important. And you know, so often we hear from franchisees, you know, yeah, I get the brand vision, I get the, you know, I know where the business is going, and I understand the franchisor's vision and their goals, but they don't understand my goals. So, you know, make sure that you truly understand what your franchisees want from your business, and how your business can be the vehicle to help them get there. You may have asked them about their goals when they signed up to become a new franchisee or were a franchisee candidate, but it may be some time has passed since you've actually revisited that. So again, download our vision planning ebook. It's a great program to help. You know, there's pieces for you as the franchisor, there's pieces for the franchisee, and they can kind of work through what their specific goals are in life and how your business can help them achieve that. And every opportunity you get to then reinforce that will just help that franchisee along the way and be much more successful with their business goals. Michelle, I will turn it back over to you.
All right, I'm ready. So number 4 is to involve your franchisees in making improvements or changes. So a lot of the time when you get the survey back, there might not be changes that are needed. You might understand that it's a misunderstanding or a misalignment of expectations of what's to deliver. But in the case that there are changes or improvements to be made, the more you can involve your franchisees in those improvements and tying the change or the improvement back to their feedback will get them to start implementing your proposed change or improvements a lot quicker, so you won't be kind of butting heads with them. So people want to be heard. They want to talk. They want to tell you about their experience. So once you've gotten that from the survey format, you need to have a plan of action, and you need to get buy-in from them. So some tips that we have to do that. Use your convention to dig deeper on the topics that are on your survey. So it's the annual time of year when you get to be in front of the majority of your franchisees, hopefully all of them, and you have their undivided attention. So this is a great time to either share the results of the survey and have deeper conversations about what's going to come next. So sometimes it can be apparent that you have negative Nancys in your system or the naysayers that are going to complain about certain pieces of your support. this is a time to actually invite them into the conversation. So using your convention to have groups of franchisees to talk about, here are the areas that you said aren't working. So now it's our time to start thinking of new ideas and ways to fix this or improve this. So you start leading a conversation with them and keep it positive, that this is not the time for us to say we don't like the intranet platform or our POS, but okay, what are new ideas? If we're looking at a new POS, what are the features that are important to you? What are the things that you need to drive your business at the store level? And start getting them to just brainstorm ideas and have someone from corporate there to listen or take notes and take that back with your team. So a lot of times, what you'll find is that the same things that they come up with are the same things that are on your team's radar to look into. So it will align or it will lead in a direction that you already headed. But because the franchisees were the ones to deliver the idea, they're going to take ownership of that idea. And that's fantastic for you, because what you can do is just, when you roll out changes, tie it back to their feedback and their ideas, and all of a sudden it starts moving through the system a little quicker. Another idea is to form task forces or committees to focus on the key areas that have come up needing work. Again, invite some of the naysayers to be part of that conversation so that they see you're not hiding from that. And if you start engaging them with other people in your system that are maybe more constructive with their feedback and start making them part of the conversation, you can really start turning them around and understanding that that's how you get them to be a brand champion, that you show them respect, you invite them into the conversation, and you allow other franchisees to kind of elevate their thoughts on the brand. Another idea that we have on our survey, we actually encourage franchisors to send the survey out with the option for the franchisee to either submit it anonymously or with their name. When the franchisee is willing to give their name, it really allows your corporate team to follow up individually with anything that came up on the survey. So the other part of that is you probably have field support people that are working directly with these people and have relationships with them. And if you have the chance to give that direct feedback to the field support person, it helps them understand the franchisee's perspective or their business better. So it really allows them an opportunity to continue building that relationship and really helping the franchisee with the challenges that they're experiencing, which might not be the same as everybody across the board, but if they have the opportunity to give you the feedback and you have it, utilize that to really step in and help them. And if your convention is not soon enough from when you do the survey, we definitely don't say wait until you have that opportunity, but set up calls and start picking people's brains on your low-scoring topics. So again, invite the franchisees to either be part of a brainstorming call, set up a task force or a committee, anything that can allow them to kind of get these new ideas and brainstorms out to your team so that as you roll out your action plan, you can tie it back into what they gave you. So Eric, I'm going to throw it back to you to wrap us up with tip number 5.
Great. You know, we've talked a lot about transparency and trust, and you know, it's our 5th bullet here, but you know, it's so easy to talk about building transparency and trust with your franchisees, and it's another thing to actually do it. And it's a really, really, really hard thing to do. When we look at all the questions that we ask franchisees, do you trust your franchisor, has nearly a perfect one-to-one correlation between or with overall satisfaction. So if you've got trust with your franchisees, chances are they're going to be satisfied and performing well in their business. If you don't have that trust, you're going to be in trouble and they're going to be in trouble. And like I said, it's easy to talk about trust, but building it, and especially rebuilding trust with a franchisee after you've lost it is really, really hard. So, you know, certainly you want to make sure that you've, you know, as you're laying out your plans and working together with your franchisees, that you've got their buy-in and that you deliver on their promises. But you know, you have to be careful. Catherine Munson at Fast Signs gave us a great tip a few years ago. She called it their convention promises list. And every one of their staffer kept a running list of every promise made to a franchisee at convention. It could be a little thing, I'll get you that, one sheet when I get back to the office, or maybe it was a bigger thing, I'll talk to the CEO about the new POS system or whatever. Every single promise was registered by staff, and they compiled a whole list that they then shared back with franchisees after convention. And it really held them to task so that they delivered on every single one of those promises, and they were held to deliver within a few weeks of convention. And if they didn't have the exact answer to get back to their franchisees, they at least knew that they were working on it. So again, something as little as that helps build trust. Be transparent. We've talked about it over and over again, but share the good and the bad. Talk, and we're not just talking about your survey results. Share financials, and not just top-line revenues, but all your expenses all the way down to net profits. That transparency needs to carry over to candidates as well. So when you're talking to candidates, be as transparent as you can, and they're going to be so much more impressed with you if you do share some of the negative things, some of the challenges that you have in the business. If it's all sunshine and rainbows, they know that you're kind of snowing them and you're giving them the sales job. But if you're realistic and you tell them exactly how it is, you're going to scare some candidates away for sure. But that's a good thing, because if they're not committed to working hard and addressing challenges in the business, they're not going to be a good franchisee anyways. So make sure that you're as transparent about everything as you can be, and engage your franchisees in that solution, as Michelle mentioned. It's not all on you as the franchisor. You want to engage those franchisees as often as possible. You've taken the first step in doing an annual survey with your franchisees. That's great. It doesn't need to end there. And what we encourage you to do is engage with your franchisees as often as possible. Get senior management involved. Have, at a minimum, have a monthly Q&A call with your CEO. No agenda, just, picking up the phone, doing a conference call with franchisees and answering any questions they may have, or giving a brief update on any major initiatives that may be going on. But give franchisees that voice that they want. Make sure that, your senior staff, your CEO, senior management gets out in the field and visits with franchisees. Or at a very minimum, picks up the phone and calls them regularly, at least once a quarter, and just asks, again, no agenda, just how you doing? What's going right? What can I help you with? And again, these little things, I mean, it's so easy to talk about, but not very many companies do it. Otherwise, we would see much greater satisfaction in franchising. But you'll be amazed at how much trust you can build with all these little things. And, again, one of the biggest things we see in our survey results is that franchisees don't feel like they're really part of the decision-making process, and that the franchisor is not engaging franchisees in challenges, decisions that are being made at the corporate level. And that's why franchisees got into franchising to begin with, is to be part of something bigger than themselves. And they wanted to be, they wanted to have that community, and they know they don't have to make the decision at the end of the day, but they want to be at least part of the discussion and know what's going on. So everything that you can do to engage those franchisees and just ask their opinion. Pulse surveys are a great tool to use. Again, you want to do a formal annual survey and get it all at once, get all their feedback and measure where you're going and how you're improving and share that back. But pulse surveys are great, and when I say a pulse survey survey is just a quick 1 or 2 question survey sent out, get more insights on a specific area, get feedback from franchisees, could be employees, could be even customers, and just that constant engagement of, we want your input, we want your help, we want to get better, we can do this together. And whether you're using our survey tool to do a pulse survey or using some other tool, just get that feedback, get that engagement, and get other franchisees involved. And again, it's easy to talk about engagement, but I know it's really hard to do. And so all these little things just add up. as Michelle mentioned, get your franchisee advisory council involved. A lot of times franchisee advisory councils just feel like they're, this sounding board for the CEO, and so communication is just between them and they feel special, and it's not necessarily trickling back down to franchisees. So get as many people as you can involved, constantly be asking their opinions, use technology to gather that feedback, and again, do everything you can to get those franchisees engaged.